Why does homelessness prevention matter?
Yeah, in Canada, we have largely built our response to homelessness as an emergency response, but also a response that's built around um, attending to folks who are in the greatest need first. So, focused on emergency and also acuity. And on the one hand, this is great. Obviously, homelessness is enormously urgent. We need to urgently respond to people who've been on the streets for a long time who are experiencing many kind of chronic health issues or a range of issues that often happen. But what this means is that we've actually built a system that requires people to go through a lot of harm, a lot of trauma, before the system kicks in to help them. So, for example, I've spent a lot of time with young people experiencing homelessness, and so often young people will say, well, I can't access that program until I've been on the streets for 6 months. And for some young people, it's say like my friend, have friends that couldn't make it, didn't live to that 6 month mark. And over those 6 months, we really are accumulating tremendous harm, tremendous trauma. Even one night on the streets can result in, for example, sexual assault is very common against young women or gender diverse and trans folks. The kind of harm that accumulates very quickly for folks who are on the street really points to the importance of a preventative approach. And, when I think about homelessness prevention, I also think about the ways in which homelessness shapes the trajectory of your life, but also has major intergenerational effects. So one of the things that we know, for example, is that if you are a young person that got involved in child welfare, you are more likely to experience homelessness as a young person and as an adult. And if you're someone that has experienced homelessness or housing precarity, you're more likely to have your children apprehended or to have child welfare involvement in some way. So there's this kind of looping effect that happens over a person's life, but also intergenerationally. This is particularly true for racialized folks, for Indigenous folks. And so there is a tremendous need to stop that process before it begins. And finally, our current approach is extremely expensive. So at the time, right now, for example, we're almost 2 years into the pandemic. And the city of Toronto, in response to the COVID pandemic, one of the things they did was procure hotel shelters for folks experiencing homelessness to move into. And the cost of a room in that is over $6,000 a month. So you can imagine the accumulation of those costs being enormous. And we need to urgently respond to the public health issue of COVID and the ways in which housing intersects there. But this is an enormously expensive approach. And what we know is in many cases, homelessness and housing precarity is deeply related to poverty, and that if you give folks access to affordable, adequate housing that meets their needs, that has the wraparound supports, it is tremendously cheaper, frankly. So all of this suggests that there's a need for prevention on a few fronts. It's certainly fiscally prudent. It's simply more cost effective to be housing people with supports rather than doing this kind of reactive approach. We know that it's going to prevent the accumulation of harm and trauma that happens to folks on the street, and it keeps people connected to their communities, to their supports, and really is, quite honestly, a human rights issue. The need to switch towards a preventative approach is in line with all the human rights treaties and obligations we have as a country.